women are making up around 45% of STEM enrollments in India today.
Today, more women go to college than men. Forget STEM. What a tremendous journey.
Definitely, there is more awareness. And I think internet technology itself has played a role.
So education in many families, is treated as a checkbox for marriage eligibility, not as the foundation of a long-term career.
Trying to create that ecosystem and support system, whether it's mentoring, skill enhancement training, what Meera mentioned about the language barrier or the gap.
We consider COVID as sort of, the biggest tragedy to hit us, but there are some positive side effects to the COVID story. And one such thing is the access of technology and mobile phone.
Hello everyone, my name is Isha and welcome to another episode of the SMEs Speak series. Today we are in conversation with Meera Rajeevan, COO at Vidyadhan, and Poorvi Shah, CEO at Katalyst India. Thank you so much for joining us today. We had the privilege of speaking to both of you while building our recent knowledge product, which was a primer on women in STEM. And the primary focus of the primer was how philanthropy can play a catalytic role in improving women's participation across the STEM pipeline. So today, in our conversation, we'll try building on that work. We'll try unpacking what has worked, where the system still falls short. What will it take for women's STEM education to actually translate into sustained careers over time? Our starting point would be on a positive note. So I want to first know, what has worked till now, since if we look at women's participation in STEM education, women are making up around 45% of STEM enrollments in India today. So, what do you think the different players in the ecosystem, including government, non-profits, philanthropy, what have all of us done right to get here? And, what lessons are really worth holding on to?
Today, more women go to college than men. Forget STEM. So what a tremendous journey when we consider that when we got independence, less than 10% of women were literate. So from that position where we are today with 48% going to STEM courses, it has been a tremendous journey. And it would not have happened without active involvement from the entire ecosystem, especially government. There has been sustained investment in school education, scholarships, hostel, reservation. Some state governments have even waived off the complete tuition fee for college education for girls. So these are excellent initiatives that have been taken by the government. Families, when you look at families, they are today more positive about sending their girl children for STEM education compared to like a generation back. Okay. I would also like to touch upon a very interesting program that was done in IITs, the SSS program, supernumerary selection program, wherein there are 20% additional seats were reserved for women. Okay, and though there was a CGPA gap in the first year, by the end of fourth year, they had just caught up and in many cases outperformed the general quota students. Okay, so with this, they were able to increase the enrollment from 10% to 20%, even in IITs. So, and in this journey, when it comes to non-profits and philanthropists like our foundation, we have focused on all the three aspects, what we call as AAA factors: access, awareness, and affordability. So if these three factors are addressed, then the chances of them performing to their potential is extremely high. But I would also just like to touch upon few things, though this is the good side or the positive side of the story. Though women forms, like you said, 45% of STEM graduates, only less than 30% are in the STEM workforce. Why? And there is a huge leadership gap. Representation drops significantly as you go up the chain.
Yeah.
And, there are disparities when you look at women entering into core engineering kind of courses as opposed to life sciences, where it can be as high as 60%, 70%.
Yeah.
So the uneven participation tells us something very important. Yes, we have expanded access, but we haven't expanded agency.
Hmm. That's a very interesting point, and I think that is going to be a large part of our conversation as well. But Poorvi, do you have anything to add to in terms of, what are the lessons worth holding on to in terms of how well we've done in ensuring access to STEM education among women?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I echo Meera's, points, and definitely there is more awareness. And I think internet technology itself has played a role. So while we talk about the STEM careers, women in STEM, technology has been also a facilitator and a leveler. So that has helped, penetrate even to tier two, tier three, any rural areas where people have access and awareness. There's more career awareness happening. And even, I think over generations, also parents are becoming more open and encouraging to their girls pursuing. Of course, it's not enough, but still there has been a change. Also, the infrastructure has expanded. So there are more colleges and engineering colleges that have been set up again in various tiers, whether it's private university or government aided colleges. So I think that has helped give more access to the students and girls. So girls don't have to travel. Besides that, the government schemes and AICTE offering various opportunities to girls in terms of the financial support. That is another enabler. And I feel another factor which is also critical to discuss is that more job opportunities. Now, there's so many IT companies, IT services, GCCs being set up. So that potential and expansion of job market and demand, of course, let's not take last 2 years, but overall, there's been a growth in that. And that demand is helping encourage more supply. Um, so I think in terms of the what has worked or positive, these are the key factors which have really contributed to the more women getting into the STEM education.
Sure. Yeah, Meera, yes.
Yeah, I agree completely with Purvi and resonate very well when she said that technology itself has been an enabler for this. Just to give you example, we consider COVID as sort of, the biggest tragedy to hit us, but there are some positive side effects to the COVID story. And one such thing is the access of technology and mobile phone, to our rural families. That has taken away the fear of technology from the minds of parents. My children spending time on mobile is bad. That has gone away. And even from within Vidyadhan, we used to conduct, tests and interviews locally. Many centers go and do the test in the morning, interview in the afternoon. But that was not scalable. We got 1 lakh applications. How are you going to do that? But COVID gave us that opportunity. We were able to reach out to all these students through mobiles, where they could take the question papers and answer them from their mobiles. So so many more girls could attend the test. They did not have to travel, right? So it starts right from there. The access to technology. I think it has been a very important player in this.
Yeah. And just to add to that, just like we said, the infrastructure is supportive. And now there are more organizations like NGOs. Like when Catalyst started 18 years ago, the focus was more on primary education and vocational skilling, which of course is also still continues to be a big need in India. But so that's why Catalyst decided to focus on the higher end of the value chain, which is professionals, especially STEM education and engineering education. And now I see that there are a lot more programs and organization also supporting girls at the higher education level. So, I think that kind of support system also helps or facilitates the growth of women in STEM education and careers.
Sure, sure. So thanks, Meera and Poorvi. I think you've been able to highlight what has worked well quite accurately, and we've seen that access has improved, awareness among different members of the community, including parents and girls themselves. That has also, improved. And in addition to that, there has been supportive infrastructure, including government initiatives. But what Meera also mentioned was that even within education, the participation still remains uneven. Sometimes, with many women being concentrated in certain disciplines such as life sciences or biology, right? So what does that say about the current approach? And in fact, a lot of the times what happens is that after high school women start dropping out. So what are the shortcomings of our current approach in education, and then of course we'll move on to the career pipeline. Yeah.
So I would say that, the gross enrollment ratio for higher education in India is very low. It's around 28%. So it has been increasing. Our stated desire is to take it to 50% by the next few years. Okay. So if that is the situation, and as I mentioned earlier, more women are actually getting into college compared to boys today. So
Yeah.
there has been a significant improvement. But what has happened is that many girls still do not truly get to choose their path. So education in many families, is treated as a checkbox for marriage eligibility, not as the foundation of a long-term career. I'll give simple examples. We have had Vidyadhan scholars. So these are really brilliant students. I told you from 1 lakh, we take 3,000, 3,500 students. So these are really brilliant students. And they could have got into excellent top tier institutions, but their families refuse to send them to hostels or co-educational campuses. So instead of pursuing engineering, they enroll in a general degree at a nearby college, simply because it is within walking distance, or the parents perceive it as safe, respectable, etc. So on paper, this looks like participation. In reality, it is a compromise forced by circumstances. So that is one thing. Then, so this compromise trap is one of the biggest blind spots in our current approach. Even brilliance gets negotiated down by concerns around safety, mobility, social norms, etc. We also see a lot of regional differences. So, for example, in most parts of South India, families are more open to professional education for women. And maybe because Bangalore is hub, Hyderabad is hub, Trivandrum is hub. So there are a lot of technology hubs in southern India. They are seeing a lot of successful women in technology. So, like you mentioned earlier, where there is a opportunity to get a good job, so parents are willing to send them. But I see that a huge challenge when I interview students from the lesser developed states. Okay, so for example, even during interviews, when we ask, what do you want to become? Everything, I have girls saying, I'll have to ask my father. So it's really a sad thing that even to dream, they need permission. Okay. So that is something that I have seen. And another challenge is the gap of English speaking and non-English speaking population. So there is very limited access for quality English education in the rural areas, and majority of these kids study in government schools. And so when it comes to employability, it is a huge challenge for them. And parents many times are not will or not unable. I am talking about the socio-economically disadvantaged people here, and they are unable or they are unwilling to spend the kind of investment that is required to enable somebody to clear NEET or JEE, especially in the case of girls. Okay, so in the case of boys, they may take loans and they may sell off their land and put them in many of these high-end coaching institutes. But I have seen that our students, whoever get into it, they are now relying on online classes, which have been made very affordable now, with several courses being offered at free or very low cost, and they are studying, and their will to win, is extremely high when it comes to girls, especially who wants to prove themselves. So that is another challenge that I see, that English and non-English speaking thing. So the limit of our current approach is clear. Enrollment without empowerment only takes us so far. So to truly unlock the participation in STEM, we have to engage them with choice, confidence, and social context, not just numbers.
Definitely. So we definitely have a lot of gaps to fill in, and some of which Meera highlighted and pointed out. Anything that you'd like to add, Poorvi?
Yes, so actually, like you mentioned right at the beginning, that women make about 45% of engineering graduates. And in fact, it's highest proportion globally. So there
Yeah.
are more women in engineering or STEM in India than anywhere else. However, as you move ahead and you see that only 14% of India's STEM workforce is women. And I mean, tech roles is slightly better, 20 to 25%. But
Yes.
if you look at the senior leadership roles, it's very low. And this is reported by NASSCOM. And I think the gap is due to various factors. So one is, of course, at the education level, it is improved and high, but not high enough. In fact, in Catalyst experience, when we go out for enrollment, and we are in six major cities: Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, Delhi, Hyderabad, and Chennai. If you look at ITCS streams, which are more, where more girls are taking it because of the later job security or comfort, convenience. In core engineering roles, the percentage of girls is hardly like 20%, 30%. In CSIT, it would be about 50%. Also, it can go up to that. In some cases, 55%. And so, but when you go into workplace, the environment. Although now there is a lot of talk on DEI, there are certain flexible policies. It's still not flexible enough for women, and women end up taking career breaks at certain inflection points. And what happens is that coming back into STEM careers is sometimes challenging because technology advances so rapidly that to keep up pace, you have to have that continuous learning education, be on the job, whether it's AI or any other technological advancement. While woman has taken a break, she has taken a break for other priorities. She's not able to keep up with that pace. So that, then sometimes works against her when she comes back. Because when she comes back, they don't look at what is her skill level currently. I mean, what was her skill, but what, how much updated she is in terms of the knowledge and the requirement. So I think that is a challenge. Secondly, there is pay gap. So there is a pay gap between men and women, and sometimes that is a deterrent for even coming back. Like if she takes a break, she said, "Anyway, I won't earn that much, so then I might as well just take a break." I've also seen that there are women who, when they become entrepreneurs, and a lot of we see in STEM women becoming entrepreneurs, but when they go out, when they are pitching or trying to raise funds, being a woman does turn out to be a disadvantage. So, while there are positive things happening on one side, there are also these challenges which continue to happen. So, they're paradoxically, they work against each other. So, I think that's been the major challenge. So at Catalyst, again, that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to create that ecosystem and support system, whether it's mentoring, skill enhancement training, what Meera mentioned about the language barrier or the gap, whether it's the personality, grooming, confidence, and that everything, the underlying is the confidence and self-esteem. Once that improves, then they can also, the access may be there, but they can leverage getting that opportunity to convert it. And once, and then we see that our girls are becoming role models in their communities, and we have so many anecdotal evidences where, because uh, one of our students got empowered socially, economically, that there are other family members, not just siblings, but relatives or friends who have also taken that plunge to take the STEM career or the route. And in fact, what I'm like really proud to share, that Catalyst girls are not just getting economically empowered, but socially empowered, where they're making informed choices about their personal and professional lives, whether it's higher education, career growth, marriage, children, and relocating when they have better opportunities than their spouses. In India, whatever economic strata you come from, typically women follow the husband. But I have seen in Catalyst where husbands follow, or they live in separate cities and countries because the woman or alumni has had better opportunities.
Poorvi, you mentioned that within STEM, the challenge is that keeping up to date to the technological changes or advancements that are taking place is a challenge, right? Because women often take career breaks. So I feel that women taking career breaks is common across different fields, and
Sure.
in terms of caregiving bias or
Sure.
safety or social expectations. But what is it within STEM that makes it even harder for them to sustain a career in the workforce? You mentioned that technology is something that gets difficult to catch up to, right? But do you think that like men are also treated similarly if they take a career break? So do you think women are more harshly judged for taking a career break, and there's that perception that, oh, they are falling behind and they need to catch up to that, or is it similar for men as well?
So I'd like to go first, if you allow
Sure,
me.
sure, sure.
So I feel that the men generally don't take career break, right? I mean that's, I feel I can assume that
Yeah.
if they do take career break, that would be to go for higher education, or to pivot into something different, to start something on their own. So it's not necessarily a career break, but also maybe they want to step back, take, now sabbatical has become
Yeah.
so popular, so they may do that. But when women take a break, they take typically for specific reasons, right? For their personal milestones, and it can become elongated.
Hmm.
So I think that is what, and also when they come back, people know that, okay, this woman has a child. So first question will be, do you have a support system to take care of child? Because then the worry is, and it's a natural thing for the company also, because they also have to run the business and get their deadlines met. So they will ask whether you have a support system if something happens to your child, or you have to go to school or whatever. How will that be taken care of? Of course, there are flexible policies and that do encourage women, but it's not enough at times.
Hmm.
The other thing is that when we say STEM careers, or would include roles which are in core engineering roles, where the factories would be in remote areas, even in IT roles. Sometimes there are different hour shifts because you're working, other time zones. So those become a challenge when women want to take more responsibilities. So they are not able to manage those. Also, there are social expectations. So, they are constantly juggling multiple roles, to ensure they stay on track and grow in their track.
Yeah, sure. Meera, would you like to add anything?
I would like to add one factor, which is networking and having a mentor within the organization, how important it is. So when I look back in my career, in the IT industry, though I was a very good performer, and I did not take any career break. I had two children. I did not take break. I did my PG. I did not take a break. So even then, you absolutely have no time for any networking. Whereas the guys go out, in the evening, and they have bonds outside the workplace also. And when you are a leader, you tend to rely on people whom you can trust all the time. And that is a challenge that women in my generation used to face. Okay, so where you absolutely have no time. What all things will you do? Even you say you are multitasking, still there are only 24 hours, right? You prioritize children, you prioritize your work, career, all that. But that importance was not known to us. I mean, actually, I was not even very aware how important it is to have a mentor or whatever. And it becomes extremely important when as you go up the ladder. And another thing that I would like to say is that, many times people tend to think it is either or. I tend to believe that it is not a situation like this. You can have a career and you can have a family. But if you start thinking that, I can only take care of my family if I quit my job. No, that is not the situation. Maybe during some time you may have to take a break. So she mentioned specifically about, I worked in an atmosphere where this global delivery model was the norm. Customer is sitting so much, so many miles away. So I had to travel, and I had to work odd hours. What I found is that if I start doing it, the members in my team start doing that. So what Poorvi mentioned about role models, that is important to have in society as well as within the organization. If you have successful women role models, nothing succeeds like that.
Our primer is uh, talking about how philanthropists are uniquely positioned to address these challenges and to fill these gaps, right? And Meera, you also are associate to the Shibulal Foundation. So I would really like your unique perspectives on, what kind of role can philanthropists play to address all the challenges that we've spoken about, and how are they uniquely positioned to do so? Purvi, I would love to know from your perspective as an NPO, because you're leading Catalyst, on how you think they can come in and help maybe the ecosystem. So I would really like to know that now and understand that from you.
Sure. So, Isha, absolutely. There is so much that needs to be done, and whether time, money, effort needs to be invested in this space.
Yeah.
In fact, there was an article by McKinsey and Pivotal Ventures closing the tech gender gap in September 2018, where they spoke about how there's not enough philanthropic money or CSR money being invested in STEM education, from where the talent pipeline emerges, right? Now, these corporates, they want a talent pipeline. If they want more women, and that's when all the DEI conversations and inclusive and getting more women on board was happening. But unless you widen the talent pool, you will not get, right? It's not just about checkbox. You want meritorious women. We don't believe in just campus to corporate short term, doses. We believe that sustained long term support is very, very critical. So we actually have a 4-year track for a 4-year engineering degree, and 3-year track for those who have directly entered into second year or join us in the second year. So the 3-year, because it does require that much time to build their self-esteem, to build their communication skills, to build their technical skills, and their preparedness for the job. So I think that kind of support system and ecosystem is required, and that requires a lot of investment of money as well, right? So the philanthropic investment, whether it's corporates or foundations, need to address this to enhance that.
Meera, what about you? I think you have been, like I said, you come from a philanthropic background, and Vidyadhan has been doing a lot of work in this space. So, what do you think has been different for Vidyadhan as a philanthropic foundation, and what do you think you've been able to do? Because you were a philanthropic foundation, so if you could just uh, talk about that a little.
Okay. So at Vidyadhan, our focus has been on higher education.
Yeah.
And what we try to do is catch them young.
Hmm.
So many of these interventions actually start happening once they get into a college. Okay, they get scholarship, they get, now there are many training, mentoring programs, etc. But what we are trying to address is that the transition where the leaky pipeline starts is even before that. They should get into a college, right? So, and get into a good course, good college, etc. So, we are taking students immediately after 10th. They are part of our program. And our commitment is that as long as you continue to study, we will support till you complete, your graduation of choice, your choice. But 80, given the situation in India, 85% of our students have preferred STEM courses, because in India, merit means science. Okay, so we don't have to fight that quite a bit. And our dropout ratio is less than 0.5 percentage. And that is because we are investing quite a bit on training and mentoring. So, for example, we have this 5-day residential training program where we get people from all the different parts of, the state to come into, one or two training centers. And it's about life skills. They are like 15, 16-year-old kids. And one part of it is also gender sensitization. I think it is extremely important for us to educate our boys as much as the girls on the aspirations, on their aspirations. So, and here what we have found very successful is to get successful people from various parts of life to come and talk to them, as role models. So our alumni come and talk. When we have a girl who is studying in IIT coming and talk to the girls, it there itself you have somebody you can aspire to be. She is somebody from my background, with not enough money, social background, but that girl is today, yes, in IIT or even outside India. I know we have cases where they are pursuing PhD in Cornell and many other, very esteemed universities with full scholarship. So we have, so that is extremely important, having role models, training and mentoring. And, when you talk about philanthropists, what they bring in is the staying power and the patience. Okay, we are not looking at, transformation next year. We are not looking at impact next year, which is, some of the challenges we see with the CSR programs, because many times they are very short-term focused. Okay, they need numbers. But these kind of transformation, what Poorvi talked about, it does not even, we are talking about 7 or 8 years. They are just entering the career. She is talking about how to sustain that career, no interventions that are required even after that.
Yes.
It is a long haul. And that is where I think philanthropic organizations have a big part to play. And in our case, we have moved the goalpost now from low dropout to ensuring 100% employability or higher education, or as the case may be. One other thing that I have very much seen in our environment is that there is a huge craze for government jobs. So even if they are studying STEM courses, they want to go into UPSC
Yes,
or government jobs, and it is very hard to argue the aspiration of the parents. I want my son or daughter to be an IPS officer or IAS officer. Vis-a-vis, they work in a private company, no job stability, long work hours, So there is that aspect as well that we have to keep in mind when we talk to these children. So I think having role models, building on that, having that patience, we have to stay the course. And as a philanthropic organization, we are not telling them what to do. We are only helping them to be their best version. Okay, so if we understand that, we will not push them to a course that they do not like, or what success means, etc. So I think these are some of the things, that managing the transition from college, getting from school to college, that is one big transition. Then from college to workforce, that's another transition. So we have several programs on that, called V Assist, and getting and we have so many mentoring sessions and programs to help the students get into a career start.
Isha, I just wanted to
Sure,
add
sure,
that
please.
echo Meera's what she's mentioned. That one is that, this whole regulation about CSR funding. Of course, there has to be governance, there have to be compliances, but this about using utilization of the money within the year, and there are restrictions in the grant. I feel that those become impediments in the growth, our growth journey. And our idea is not to just get money. Why are we seeking money? We are seeking money to, support more women, or to grow and, create a larger and wider impact. Half of our time goes in administration, half of our time, because they want to spend money within the year. Every year we face challenge in the second year. Even though they give 4-year commitment, sometimes it takes anyway up to 6 months to get the second year's tranches, and we have to continue the program. We can't stop the program, right? Our program cycles are not aligned to the financial year, they are aligned to academic year. And also, they are not based on when we receive the money, they have to be ongoing. So that becomes one big challenge, and that's why we want to seek more philanthropic funds which are unrestricted or long term. And that's where, when we get some international grants, that of course gives, because they are much more aligned and they have more long term focus. So I think that is something we really need to relook at. How do we, enhance philanthropic money for ongoing long term projects? It is a long term impact. So we do have short term, indicators or KPIs, but at the same time, we want to see full growth.
I would like to add that, CSR has helped us quite significantly,
Of
not
course.
just in terms of the funding support. We have a zero administrative cost model, wherein like-minded corporates can, or anybody, even individuals, can support our students. We don't take a single rupee from that. Entire money goes to the beneficiary, to the children. Okay, so ensure complete transparency and all that. With that approach, we have been able to really scale. Okay, and another good thing that has come out of is that the mentoring programs from them.
Absolutely.
Because these are corporates, who know what is required by them. And so we have a case where one of our corporate sponsors did a 6-week mentoring program for to help our on employability skills of our final year students. And all of them ended up with two choices, two
Wow.
options.
Awesome.
So that is a very, very powerful thing that we have found beyond funding.
Fact that you guys are actually getting inspired by each other's work, and there is a potential for partnership that, I mean, we couldn't be happier for, but just wanted to close this conversation on one note, and wanted to know that, I mean, of course, we've spoken about a lot of changes that are required and a lot of initiatives that are also being done. But if you feel like, if you could just talk about one shift in how programs are designed or funded and even supported that you believe can meaningfully help women not just enter STEM, but stay and grow within STEM.
So I feel that we have to stop thinking about them as programs and start thinking of them as pathways. It's not just about access, but the continuity, and we have to design for that. So you design a program in a way that you are creating a pathway for growth and success. So in fact, just one thing I want to add, that Catalyst initially started with giving them money, or paying for college fees, and then doing some programs or skilling. From that, it's completely transformed into more about holistic development. And even the financial payout is based on learn and earn model, because we want to encourage more participation in our program, whether it's mentoring, training, so that that education and that development will take them to their through their life, because money gets used up in one day. So money, of course, is required to continue fuel and grow, but the whole support system and holistic development will stay with them and help them become future leaders.
Yeah. Also, sorry, just one thing that I observed from the conversation was that challenging notions is very important, right? I think Meera spoke about enabling agency, empowering, and so did, I think, you, Poorvi, you brought up examples of how sensitization has to be done among different community members. So I feel that is also very important, and that stays true for all stages. And because again, the stereotypes that we have for women, they would keep coming in. So I think that is also a very important aspect of that holistic support that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
Absolutely. And that's why even that role model, like the vicious
Yeah,
circle, has to
exactly.
convert into virtuous cycle.
Yes,
So I think that itself will showcase what is possible,
Yeah.
and to see that person out there.
Yes, yes. Meera.
Yeah. I would say catch them young, continue the support long term, and build partnerships. I don't think any one agency or any organization or any entity can solve this problem on its own. I mean, if it could be solved so easily, it would have been solved, right?
By now.
So, yeah. So I think we should be humble enough to recognize that and build on, lean on others who can complement what we are trying to do and address all the dimensions. I think then we have a pretty good chance of succeeding.
That's great. Thank you so much, Poorvi and Meera, for a great and a very insightful conversation.